Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Library. Today we are talking about the last book in the Black Fleet Crisis by Michael P. Cube McDowell, and it is called Tyrants Test, the final book of the series. So let's go ahead and we'll dive on into it. So basically, this book picks up where the last book left off, Shield of Lies. Basically, what you have is the Yevithans are still, that alien species basically are coming in and rebelling, and they're trying to take over and, do all this stuff against their former Imperial masters. And then they're forced, doing this aggressive, movement to come in. So it forces the New Republic to go in and fight them. It creates a little bit of a conflict, a little bit of a war in a sense. So Leia is still dealing with all of this. She's trying to deal with all the political nonsense that she had to deal with in the last book about them trying to remove her from office. And then, of course, she's also struggling because she thinks that Han is dead. He was kidnapped, obviously, in book 2. He's missing. He's presumed dead. And so she's kind of, there's a lot, poor Leia's got a lot on her plate at this point. Luke is still continuing on his journey with Akana. And basically he's still trying to figure out his, what's the deal with his mother. And it's kind of focusing on kind of what he's going to do when he comes back to the New Jedi Order. Of course, his mother is not who he thinks that she is, and because obviously Padme was not a part of this group that Akana is trying to say that she was in, and so that's ultimately resolved, and then so it doesn't contradict, the prequels or anything like that. So that's the whole thing that he's going on there. Then, of course, you got Han. He, of course, is still alive, and he's kind of resisting a lot of torture and psychological torture and manipulation and during his whole time. And so he is basically, he does ultimately escapes, and he does get back to the Republic, and so that's a really good role. The Yevithans have him. And Leia is basically, again, she's carrying, I would argue the brunt of this trilogy and all that she's doing. And ultimately it's really because of her and her decisions that the Yevithans are ultimately defeated, because of course they are, right? Luke, same thing. He's, like I said, he's not a major part in this war. He's more in the background. His is kind of a background story for me. But it is kind of interesting what he does. And he actually, it's really interesting too, because he goes a lot in and deals a lot with the Fallen Nasi and their connection to the Force, which for me, it's really interesting. So you have a lot of other different characters. You have a lot of different things. I mean, this one is, again, because it's wrapping everything up, there's a lot more action. The pacing is definitely a little bit better because of that. Basically, all the payoffs that you'd think from a normal book trilogy is there. So it's definitely, overall, I mean, the Black Fleet Crisis, to me, I always thought it's kind of an underrated trilogy. I feel like it doesn't get talked about as much as, say, other Expanded Universe novels. And there's probably a reason for that. It's definitely not the flashy one. It's definitely more focused on political conflict and more character psyche, I guess you could say, more than just the action and the big, events of the Star Wars universe. So I think there's a reason for that. But to me, it's interesting. Again, as someone who likes the political stuff in Star Wars and those kinds of conversations and all that, I really dig it. It's an interesting read. It's definitely a more unique Star Wars book in the Expanded Universe. So to me, I give this, totally recommend this. So it's an essential read. Obviously, if you're reading the Black Fleet Crisis, yes, it's an essential read. Is the Black Fleet Crisis an overall essential read? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know if I'd call it an essential read, but I will tell you it's very good, and I would still recommend it, and still think that these 3 books are good and are worth your time if you are a Star Wars fan delving into the Expanded Universe for the very first time. If you've never read it and you are an EU fan, I'd still say read it. If you have never read it and are not interested, I'd still say give it a shot. I still think it's pretty good. So that does it for the Black Fleet Crisis, and we will see you next time with another episode of the Star Wars Library.